Ever see a Chevy drive-by? Of course you have. It's one of the most iconic car brands in the world, a symbol of American ingenuity. But what if I told you the man whose name is on billions of cars died broke, forgotten, and working on the very assembly line that built his legacy? This is the unbelievable and tragic story of Louis Chevrolet. Our story begins not in Detroit, but in a small watchmaking town in Switzerland in 1878. Louis-Joseph Chevrolet was born into a world of gears and precision. His father was a watchmaker, and from a young age, Louis was fascinated by mechanics. But he wasn't interested in tiny watch parts. He was drawn to bigger, faster machines. As a teenager, his family moved to France, and it was there he discovered his first love, the bicycle. He wasn't just riding them. He was racing them and winning. He became a local champion, and his talent for both riding and repairing bikes earned him the nickname, the Daredevil. But bicycles weren't fast enough. The turn of the century brought the automobile, and for a young mechanic with a need for speed, it was a revelation. He knew his destiny wasn't in Europe. It was across the ocean, in the land of opportunity, America. In 1900, with barely any money to his name, Louis Chevrolet arrived in New York. He started as a mechanic, quickly earning a reputation for his skill. He could listen to an engine and diagnose a problem like a doctor listening to a heartbeat. His talent didn't go unnoticed. He began working for major car manufacturers, and more importantly, he got back on the racetrack. This is where the legend of Louis Chevrolet truly begins. Behind the wheel of a roaring, primitive race car, he was fearless. He pushed his machines to their absolute limit and then beyond. In 1905, he set a world land speed record, hitting a staggering 111 miles per hour. In an era when cars were still a novelty, this was like breaking the sound barrier. He raced against the legendary Barney Oldfield and became a national celebrity. The crowds loved his daring, his skill, and his signature look, a big bushy mustache and an intense stare. He was one of America's first racing superstars. And one man was watching very closely, William Billy Durant. Durant was the polar opposite of Chevrolet. He wasn't a mechanic or an engineer. He was a master salesman, a visionary, and a ruthless businessman who had just founded a little company called General Motors. Durant saw Chevrolet not just as a great driver, but as a powerful brand. That name Chevrolet, it sounded sophisticated, European, and exciting. Durant had a plan. He had recently been forced out of his own company, GM, by bankers who thought he was too reckless. But Durant was already plotting his comeback. He approached Louis with a proposition. Let's build a new car together. A car that would be better and more affordable than the Ford Model T that was taking over the country. He wanted to use Louis' engineering genius and, crucially, his famous name. For Louis, it was the dream of a lifetime. He would finally get to design and build his own car from the ground up with no compromises. In 1911, the Chevrolet Motor Car Company was born. Louis poured his heart and soul into their first car, the Classic 6. It was a masterpiece of engineering for its time, powerful, stylish, and built with the precision of a Swiss watch. It had a big six-cylinder engine and an electric starter, features unheard of in most cars of the day. It was everything Louis believed a car should be, a high-quality performance machine, but there was a huge problem. The Classic 6 was expensive. It cost over $2,000, more than 5 times the price of a Ford Model T. Billy Durant. The salesman knew this was a disaster. He wanted to build a car for the masses, a cheap car to compete directly with Ford. Louis, the engineer, refused to compromise on quality. He wanted to build the best car, not the cheapest. The two men clashed constantly. Durant saw cars as products to be sold in massive quantities. Chevrolet saw them as works of art and engineering. The final straw came when Durant, without consulting Louis, decided to redesign the car to make it cheaper. Louis was furious. He felt his name was being tarnished, attached to a car he didn't believe in. In 1913, in a heated argument with Durant, Louis Chevrolet reportedly yelled, "I sold you my car, but I didn't sell you my name." He stormed out, severing ties with the company he co-founded. In a move that would haunt him forever, he sold his stock in the Chevrolet Motor Company back to Durant. It was a decision based on principle, a stand for his integrity as an engineer. But it was also a catastrophic financial mistake. Billy Durant, now in sole control of the Chevrolet name, did exactly what he planned. He produced cheaper, four-cylinder models that sold like crazy. The company became wildly successful. So successful, in fact, that Durant was able to use his massive holdings of Chevrolet stock to perform a reverse takeover of General Motors. He walked back into the GM boardroom and declared, "Gentlemen, I am in control." The Chevrolet brand became the cornerstone of the General Motors empire, a name that would soon be known in every corner of the globe. And what about Louis Chevrolet? He went back to what he loved, building fast cars. He and his brother Gaston started the Frognac Motor Corporation, designing and building revolutionary race cars. They dominated the sport. In 1920, a Frognac car, driven by his brother Gaston, won the most prestigious race in America, the Indianapolis 500. It was a moment of incredible triumph for Louis, but tragedy was right around the corner. Just a few months after that victory, Gaston was killed in a horrific racing accident. Louis was devastated. He had lost his brother, his racing partner, and his passion for the sport died with him. He sold the Frognac company and tried to move on. He attempted other ventures, an aircraft engine company, a boat company, but he lacked Billy Durant's business sense. He was a brilliant inventor, but a poor businessman. One by one, his companies failed. The Great Depression hit, wiping out what little savings he had left. The man whose name was on millions of cars, a name synonymous with American success, was now struggling just to get by. In a heartbreaking twist of fate, in the mid-1930s, an aging and ailing Louis Chevrolet returned to Detroit. He took a job, not as a celebrated engineer or a company president, but as a line worker. An hourly employee at the Chevrolet factory, the very factory that bore his name. He was assembling the cars that were making General Motors a fortune, while he himself was slipping into poverty. It's hard to imagine what that must have felt like. Walking through the factory gates every day, seeing his own name in giant letters, knowing the immense wealth it represented, while he was just a forgotten face in the crowd. His health declined rapidly. He suffered a series of strokes, and in 1941, Louis Chevrolet died at the age of 62. He was buried in Indianapolis, near the racetrack where he and his brother had known their greatest triumphs. His grave is marked by a simple stone, a stark contrast to the global empire his name had become. So the next time you see a Chevy Silverado, a Corvette, or a simple Malibu drive past, remember the man behind the badge. Remember the Swiss watchmaker's son, the daredevil bicycle racer, the fearless speed king, and the brilliant engineer who sacrificed a fortune for his principles. A man who gave his name to one of the world's biggest brands, only to die forgotten by the very empire he helped create. It's a powerful reminder that fame and legacy are two very different things. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. See you in the next one.